Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you for joining us for today's session on quick tips and tricks for law librarians using Excel. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat and our speakers will answer them at the end. This session will be recorded and a practice worksheet will also be available. And now our speakers are ready to begin.
Hi guys, my name is Jeannette Mazur. I'm a legal content specialist at Baker Hostetler, and I have about 15 years of tech experience in the legal field. And this is my co-presenter. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Pamboukes. I'm a senior legal researcher at Baker Hostetler. I've been here for 2 years. I've been a law librarian for over 10 years. And without further ado, I guess we'll share the Okay, so let me just turn off I'll share my screen first.
Yeah, we're going to turn off our webcam so we're not distracting and to save on bandwidth.
Okay, so I guess, Jeanette, you can see okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to start on the Sort and Formula Offices tab on the bottom left. And the first thing I'm going to show you is just a quick tip on how to sort as fast as possible. So let's say you want to sort this data right here, these numerical values. Typically you would try to find it on the ribbon. You go to the top right, and there's a sort and filter here. You could go into the data tab on the top, and select filter, but there's even a faster way than that. So if you just click into that data and right click and go to sort and sort smallest to largest, and just like that, it resorted all of the data. And if you right click on it again, you could sort here from largest to smallest. So you can easily do that. And it doesn't just sort numerically. So if I go to the column to the left of the attorney's column, the office column, these are not numerical values. These are office locations. So here it would sort alphabetically. So again, if I right click, Excel will figure out what type of sort to apply. And if you click on the sort button, now it's saying sort A to Z. So now the offices are sorted and alphabetically instead. And if I right click again, I could do sort Z to A. So instead of having to find the sort function on the ribbon, you could just do it within the spreadsheet itself. So that's just a little nifty tip. So I'm going to jump now from the Sort and Formula Offices tab to the tab on the far bottom right, the Users tab. So now this is a lot more data to sort, right? So we're seeing here 7 columns. So the first thing is that when you have a spreadsheet like this and you want to sort it, you want to make sure that there are no blank rows, because you want all the data to be contiguous. So if I scroll down, you see there's only 36 rows and there's no rows in between separating out the data. Another good way of finding out which data is being captured is if you use your keyboard and you hit the Control-A key, it will select all of the data. And so as you scroll down, you can see where it ends. And if you do Control and press the period button, it will take you to the top left of the data. If you press Control period again, top right, and again, bottom right and bottom left. So you see now the 4 corners of the data set that you're looking at, and you see that there's nothing below it that is being missed, which is important because if you miss something like that, it's going to throw off all of your sorting features. Okay, so now I'm going to click into the data, and I'm going to sort on multiple columns. So I'll show you how to do that. It's really pretty simple. I just right click and go to sort, and instead of doing sort A to Z or sort C to A, I go down to the very bottom selection and I select custom sort. And so so now I'm going to start by sorting alphabetically by state. Okay, so that's the first sort, but then I want to add an additional level of sorting after state. So all I have to do is click on the very top left and click Add Level. Now I'm going to sort by city, and I'm even going to add another level after that. And so it's sorting by state alphabetically, and then city alphabetically, And below that, I'm going to sort by last name alphabetically. And with prior versions of Excel, you could only sort up to 3 levels, but here you could keep going as long as you'd like, up to 64 times, which is a big difference. But we're just going to stick with 3 for this. I'm going to press OK. And now you could see, so the state that comes first is California, and then Connecticut, so that's alphabetized. And then the cities are also alphabetized. So San Diego comes before San Francisco alphabetically. And then within the city of San Diego, Daly, Gonzalez, and Miller are all alphabetized. So there's 3 sorts happening here at the same time. So that's just a really cool little trick to remember. So now I'm going to go back to the Sort and Formula Offices tab, first tab. And now you see on the bottom here, total, average, highest, lowest. So very often, everyone has worked with Excel formulas before, and you just want to quickly find out what is the total value, average, highest, lowest, what's the fastest way of doing that using the formulas, or maybe there's another way. So I'm going to show you a really fast and easy way of finding that information. So the first step is actually selecting all the data, the entire data set itself. And as you select it, actually, if you go all the way down to the bottom right on the status bar, it's automatically telling you the sum, the average. And if I right-click on the status bar, I can even add other functions here that I would like it to show. So, so now as I click off of it, it's telling me the highest value, minimum value, the sum, and the average. So just selecting the data without doing any formula writing at all, you get that information. And then if I hover over it, it says some of selected cells copy to clipboard. So if I click it, I'm just going to left click it and then go into the total column and do Control V. It's actually going to input that value. And again, if I just select all the data and go to average, just one little point I'd like to point out though, is that if you select extra columns, you may make a mistake. So I would always recommend just selecting the data set itself and then going to average and clicking copy and paste like that. So that's one way of basically getting quickly finding the sum, average, highest, lowest. But if you do want to use formulas, which you may want to, it's an easy way of doing that too. So I'm going to go the total cell right here. If I go to the top right, and if I go to this auto sum function here and just click it, it's telling me, it's giving me the sum and the data range, and I'm just going to change it again to just this content right here. And after I've selected it, I'm going to press enter, and it's giving me the same amount, same value that I had selecting it on the very bottom there, 1778. Now for average, if I go into auto sum and select the average function here under the dropdown, again, it's assuming that the data set is just one value, B21, but actually it's going to be this data set, B2 to B18. So once I've selected the right data set, I'm going to click enter, and it's telling me that the average is 104.5882. And for the highest, that's actually the max function. So on the very top right, under auto sum, if I go to max, it's assuming I want the highest out of these two values, which is not correct. I want the highest out of these values right here. So if I select these, it's telling me that the highest value is 239, and I can quickly find that out. If I go into this again and do sort by largest to smallest, it's telling me the 239 is the highest value in the office of Cleveland. And the lowest should be 16 in San Francisco. So if I go back and under auto sum, click the drop down and click minimum, again, it's defaulting to what's above it, which is not correct. So you always have to make sure it's the correct data range. So I'm going to select this data right here again and press enter. And it is saying that the minimum is 16, and that is the same as what's reflected in this table. So I'm going to pass it over now to Jeannette.
Hi, thanks. Chris, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. One thing I think we forgot to mention is this Excel file that we're doing examples on will be available along with the recording and a handout after this presentation is over. So if you're scrambling to take notes, don't worry, this will all be available later. What we're going to move on to now is this chart and column. I don't know about you guys, I am a huge fan of keyboard shortcuts. If you hold the Alt key on your keyboard and hit F1, so Alt, F1, it will automatically create a column chart for you. Column chart is always the default chart. Another way you can do it is if you like having your charts on tab its own, you can just press F11 on your keyboard, all the way at the top usually. When you press F11, for some reason mine's having a meltdown, but it should create a new tab at the bottom with your chart information. It's going to delete this. This only works if you're selected somewhere within your data. Now, to bolster our information for our next chart, we're going to add totals. Now, Chris showed you how to do AutoSum. So Chris showed you how to do AutoSum. Yes, we could go through each one of these and click AutoSum, AutoSum. That's a lot of clicking. Excel has gotten pretty good at intuiting what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of our information as well as the blank total rows. When we do that, we're going to click on AutoSum, and it fills all that information in for us instead of having to do it multiple times. So using this new information, we're going to do, Chris, what was that keyboard command again?
Alt F1.
Alt F1, yep. So Alt F1, and it creates a chart. Now you'll notice, because we have totals, our chart looks a little wonky donkey, right? Not great. One of the great things about charts in Excel is you can filter the data that you actually show. So even though we selected all the data, you can click this little funnel on the right-hand side and select what you want to show. So we don't want to see the totals for the series. We don't want to see the totals for our departments. When we click on OK, it gives us more easy to read chart. This is great. Using this filter is great when you have data that's not super robust. So we just have a couple of columns, a couple of rows. Using the filter is a good way to filter out what we want. Now let's say we wanted to see the totals for all of our departments. What you can do is you can highlight your departments and then hold the Control key on your keyboard. So highlight the departments, hold the Control key, and then highlight the totals. This allows you to select non-contiguous rows. Columns that are not next to each other. So highlight the first column, Control, highlight the second column. Now we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to insert a bar chart. Great, so this is a good way to see how our departments have been doing for the past 4 years. Now, if you want it to look a little nicer, or maybe you want to include more information, you can always use the styles up here. When you click on the dropdown, it gives you different styles. You can hover over them, see which one you like the best. I kind of like this dark one, but someone else might like this one. Again, you can play around with it until you find what works best for your data. Okay, we're going to jump over to the Charts Invoices for Firms tab. We have a lot more information than we did on the previous tab. We're going to create our chart. Chris, what was that keyboard command again?
Alt F1.
Alt F1. So Alt F1, it creates a chart for us. But this chart is too much information. It has revenue and expenses. It has multiple dates. Let's say I just wanted to see the information for 2020. We could use this filter, but because there is so much information, it doesn't let you select just a year. If you want to do 2020, we'd have to unselect everything and then click 12 times to just see the information for 2020. That's a lot of work. So I'm going to show you another way to filter data in your chart, especially one that works a little bit better when you have a lot of data. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our filters. You can either do it from the data tab and click filter. You can go on the home tab. There's a sort and filter option. We're going to click the drop down, and you'll notice right away it breaks it down by years, which it didn't for the filter in our chart. We're going to unselect it and select 2020. When we click OK, don't freak out, the chart's done. So that's not super helpful, right? We're going to undo this, or we can clear the filter. I'm just going to do Control Z, undo, or you can use the undo button. So our chart is back. To keep your chart in place when you're filtering data, right-click anywhere on your chart. It helps to right-click on the white space, either to the right or the left of the chart title. If you right-click on the chart itself, sometimes it pulls up the wrong thing. So we right-click, and then from right-click, we're going to go to Format Chart Area, all the way at the bottom. From Format Chart Area, we're going to go to this little plus sign arrow that says Size and Properties. From Size and Properties, we're going to go to Properties. Now, this is the thing that's causing our problem. Move and size with cells. We don't want this on, because right now what happens is as we hide our chart as well. We're going to say, don't move or size with cells. That's it. Now, when we click the drop down and change it to 2020, it should just show our data for 2020 as well as showing that information in the chart. We're going to change this instead to 2021. And I'm going to tell you why it's helpful to turn your data into a table. Right now, our chart is just pulling from a very limited set of data. If I were to add another data point on here, like 2121, and some numbers, you'll notice it doesn't pull into our chart, which is frustrating. So then we'd have to either recreate the chart or do some other things. I'm going to clear the filters for my data. What you can do is you can turn your chart into a table, or turn your information into a table that will automatically pull information into your chart. To do this, I like to use Control T for table. You can also go to Insert Table. Chris will talk more about this in the next part. We click on OK, and it creates a table, which looks awesome. And then we can change it to just show 2021 data. And you'll notice as we add more information to our chart, so to 121, it automatically updates our chart. So using tables on data while working with charts can be really helpful. I highly recommend it. So I'm going to hand this back over to Chris.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you so much, Jeannette. So I'm going to switch now to the Checkouts tab on the bottom right. And if I click into it, now you see a lot of data here, and I'm going to show you how to format a spreadsheet. So if you look at the barcode column, column A, you'll notice that they're all different number of digits. So some of them are 4, some of them are 5. And let's say you wanted them all to be 5. So if you go into the formula box and just type in 0, 1, 3, 2, 4 and press enter, unfortunately it reverts back to 1, 3, 2, 4 because it's treating this as a numerical value. You know, one thing that sometimes people do is they say, oh, well, so if I change this cell into a text format cell, and I would be able to put it in at 0, 1, 3, 2, 4, and that'll fix the problem. Well, that's true, but if you scroll down, quite a few that are 4, and it could be very time consuming, especially if you have hundreds of rows to go through each one individually and to change it each one separately. So there's a really cool shortcut that you can use. So if you just select the data itself here, then you go into the general dropdown and you go into more number formats. If you go into the custom one, and then if you type in 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 for 5, see it's giving you a sample at the very top, 0, 1, 3, 2, 4. And what that means is that if I press the OK button right here, it will automatically format all of that to fit that formatting scheme. And if I go back into it, for example, go back into more number formats and go into custom again, if you wanted to as well, you could do it as a client matter number. So often, here we have client matter numbers as six digits with a period and then 6 digits after that. So here I would just add another one and do like that. And just like that, if I press OK, it has reformatted all of the barcodes into client matter number format. So that's just a really cool time saver. So the other thing with tables too is that, so I'm going to turn this data into a table now. And Jeannette showed you before how to use the Alt-T. I'm going to just go in Insert, the Insert tab at the very top, and then just click on Table. And it's asking me, does my table have headers? And the answer is yes, it does. It has barcode, patron name, title, checked out, has all the headers in it. And it's capturing all the data. So as I scroll down, I'm just confirming that, and I'm pressing OK. Now, one nice thing about tables is that as I scroll down, you'll see you don't lose the headers on top. They stay. So as I scroll down, you're still seeing the header. It's just a nice little feature. The other thing is that there's a contextual tab that is created when you turn a data set into a table. That's the table design tab on the far right. So here you can actually change how the table looks. So you could change the color scheme if you wanted to. You can also take out the banded rows. Maybe you don't like banded rows. Maybe you just want banded columns instead. So you can change how it looks. I'm going to take off the banded rows. Just little things that you can do. You can also add here a total row. So with a total row, here it is going and looking, and it's adding up the book cost, and it's giving you a sum of all of these values. If I click on the drop down here, if I don't want a sum, let's say I want average, I can do 7. So that's telling you that all these book costs, the average is $705. If I want to bring it back to sum again, I can do it that way. And it doesn't just work with numerical values. So for example, if I go to the column next to it and I take a look, maybe I want a count for the number of entries in this column. If I just click count, it will show me how to do that as well. So the other thing that I'm going to show you is how, I'm going to just uncheck that. I'm going to show you how to apply filters on a table. So I'm going to start by filtering the data by department. So if I click on that little drop down here, it's giving me options. So maybe I only want to show IP and tax in this table. I'm going to click OK. And one thing that you'll notice is that if I do Control Z, the total was 23,976. As I go into department and filter only for IP and tax and press OK, now the sum has been adjusted to reflect that new amount. So now if I wanted to add another filter, I can go into, let's say, patron name here. And I can say, well, I actually want only these 3 individuals, and I don't want to include Nicole and Haley in this data. So if I click OK, so you can add multiple filters of the data. And the nice thing is on the headers here, you can see that there is a filter applied to patron name, and there's also a filter applied to department. And if you ever want to clear the filters, this is a really useful tool to know. If you go into the data tab and just simply click clear, you're taken back to that initial table that you had at the very beginning. So the next thing I'm going to show you is what we call 5-click pivot tables, and I'm going to count for each click how to create a pivot table. I know some people are a little bit nervous about using them, so I'm just going to make it as simple and as easy as possible, and I'm sure after this it will be much more natural to do it. So before even starting a pivot table, there's 2 questions that you need to ask with any table that you're looking at. And the first is, what column repeats and what column is numeric? So looking at this data right here, you can see that the book cost column is the numerical column, right? And you could see department column is one that repeats. So we have business repeating multiple times. And then we also have the patron name column repeating. We have some, so Michael Black repeats twice. So we've identified 2 columns that repeat and 1 numeric column. So that's basically it. So the first click is you click on the Insert tab, click 1, Insert. Then click 2 is click on the pivot table. Click 3 is click OK. And now click 4 is clicking on the far right here under patron name. And click 5 is book cost. And just like that, with 5 clicks, you've created your own pivot table. So here, if you wanted to, you don't have to, taking each individual and adding up some of their book costs. Maybe you don't want it to be by patron name. Maybe you want it by department as well. So department is also one of the columns that repeated. So automatically it's adding up all of the IP book costs, all the tax book costs, and it's giving you the grand total as well. So that is a really cool feature. So now when you're looking at this pivot table, you want to create a chart, right? So once you're in the pivot table itself, if you click on Alt F1, so I'm just going to do Alt F1, it automatically creates a chart. And here you're looking at the data. Maybe you want to sort this data so that it's from smallest to largest. So what you have to do is you have to click back into the pivot table data itself, right click, and go into sort. And I'm going to select sort smallest to largest. And just like that, it has rearranged this, chart so that it's showing the data from smallest to largest. And if I click back into the pivot table again and sort here by largest to smallest instead, we'll see that the chart now is changed to reflect that new new sorting as well. So I'm going to pass now to oh, the last one. I'm sorry. One last thing I forgot is that let's say you also want to change how this information is displayed, right? So you want this to be displayed in some dollar amount value. So there's an accounting format and a currency format. And so the accounting format is if you go to this number group right here and click on that dollar icon, see it doesn't just update the pivot table, but also updates the chart as well with the dollar amounts. And if you click on the drop down, you could also, if you wanted to, select the currency format. And again, it will just update it reflecting that. So if you want to turn this into dollar values, you can do that very easily using that function.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so I'm going to steal the screen back. We're almost done. You guys are doing great. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm just going to reiterate what Chris told you about the 5-click pivot table, because we feel like this is such an important topic, and it really gets a bad rap. It sounds scary. It doesn't have to be. 5 clicks and you have a pivot table. So what is a pivot table? It's just advanced subtotals. It's a way to subtotal things that repeat in your data. So we're going to do, like Chris said, we're going to find first what repeats, and second, what's numeric. So we have a couple of different things that repeat here. The estate repeats, the city repeats, some of the names repeat. We're just going to focus on city and state. And then what's numeric? We're going to focus on our book purchases to date. So from here, we're going to do our 5 clicks. 1, insert tab. 2, pivot table. 3, okay. 4 is what data repeats. So we're going to start with state. And then 5, what's numeric? That's it. 5, and we have our pivot table. You can, like Chris said, you could uncheck state and select city. Again, it listed all alphabetically. You can also do both. If you want the city and then the state, it'll give you the city or the state and then the city below it. Like Chris also said, you can highlight your numbers. You'll notice by default on our users tab, it did have the correct formatting that we wanted. But on our pivot table, it doesn't automatically pull that formatting over. So every time you create a pivot table, you'll just have to get used to changing it to, currency or accounting or whatever you want. I also like to use these buttons to increase or decrease the decimal. It's kind of 50-50 whether or not I get the correct one. So that is our presentation. We'd like to open it up. If you guys have any questions, we are here for it.
Thanks to both of you. I don't see any questions in the chat or the questions box right now. So.
That's okay. If we don't have questions, we'll give you back the rest of your day. Again, all of this will be available. I think Julie, who's hosting our presentation, will have it available shortly, both the Excel file as well as the handout, just kind of briefly talking about what we went over, and this recording.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.